Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Horsemanship Journey podcast. My name is Shane Jacob, your host, and I appreciate you taking your time to be here with me today. This episode is brought to you in part by Cowboy Cuffs. Elevate your style, elevate your life. This particular shirt is called Blue Merle. Cowboys like working dogs, and this shirt's named after a color of an Australian Shepherd working cow dog or working dog. The name got my cool cowboy cuffs with my custom cuff link there. It's got my brand on it. The name Blue Merle was for this shirt was inspired by some friends of mine, Dane and Teresa Johnson, that raise Australian Shepherds in Utah. So anyway, yeah, cowboy cuffs. I love this shirt. It might be my new favorite. Today I want to talk a little bit about about horses and people, just like always, but I want to talk about the first ride on the horse. As you may know, based on my cool cowboy cuff shirt and my awesome J.W. Brooks hat, that I'm a horseman and I ride horses. And I have done for a long time, and I've started a lot of horses. I've had a lot of first rides. I've put a lot of first rides on horses. And so that's what I want to talk about today, is the first ride on a horse, and then relate that to parenting and relate it to relationships. So I just want to break that down. So let's just take a look. If you can picture, if you will, that the first ride on a horse, usually it's after a lot of preparation, okay? So that's important to note, because we'll also relate this to people, is the preparation that goes into the first ride. So at this point, by the time it's time to step on, usually at this point, we've got the horse accustomed and trained to be caught, to be haltered. They broke the lead. You can tie him up. A lot of times you can handle his feet. He's used to, and he feels comfortable with the saddle blanket and the saddle and how that feels moving around in him. A lot of times you've tried to organize his mind by moving him around inside of a round pen. Usually the first ride usually takes place inside of a round pen or a round corral, which is just what it says. It's a corral made into the shape of a circle, so that the first ride is contained, and that the horse only has, can't get away from you, and if you have no control, you're going to be contained to this circle, usually about 40 feet to 100 feet in diameter. And so that's kind of what it looks like when it comes time. Okay. And so we do everything that we can, that we know, to be able to prepare the horse for something that the horse has never experienced before. But even with all that we do, even with all the hours and hours and prep and everything that goes into organizing this horse's conditioning him, desensitizing him, and most importantly, organizing his mind and preparing him for things that are new for the first time. Even with all that, it's still the first ride, and he or she will still be experiencing their first ride. Okay, and there's nothing like that. A lot of times we have devices that simulate people that are put on horses and so on. But there's really nothing like a human being when the rider can feel, and when the horse can feel the rider. They can feel your heartbeat, they can feel your breathing, they can feel your pulse really through your legs and your seat. When you take a hold of the reins, they can feel through their mouth all the way to your hands. And so that is the first time, and a lot of times it can be pretty scary for a horse that's never experienced that, even with all the prep. Okay, so what I want to do is just lay out how this happens. If you can visualize a young horse, and then I'm going to lay out two scenarios. Okay, one is both of these, by the way, I've experienced, so they're not really hypothetical. These are things that happen a lot when the first ride happens. Okay, And I'm going to put what the horse is thinking and what the rider's thinking. Okay, now I don't know exactly what the horse is thinking, but I've ridden enough to have a pretty good idea. So I'm going to just kind of tell you how this all goes down. So if you can picture, the horse is saddled and he's inside the round pen. All the prep is done. And finally it's time. We've done everything that we know and we can. It's time to step on for the first ride and see if we can move forward and be able to stop and get off and call it our first ride. Okay, so we have a goal in mind and it's time to get on. So I'm going to go into the horse's mind and break down his thoughts, his feelings, his action, and his results of what happens to that, and the rider. And I'm going to go back and forth. So our first scenario is this. The rider, now, even this has been to where the rider may have already stepped into his foot into the stirrup, he's wiggled the saddle, he's put weight in it, he's stood up on the outside, but he's never actually threw his leg over and sat down in the saddle. So the first time that happens, the rider steps up into the stirrup, swings his leg over the saddle, puts his other leg in the stirrup, both feet are in the stirrups, he sits down on the saddle. Okay, first ride. Here's probably, or here's likely what the horse is thinking. Okay, the horse is like, hey, something's new, something's different. This is wrong. Is something wrong? Okay, or something is wrong may spark a feeling of fear. When the horse fears, let's try that again. When the horse feels fear, what does he do, right? Usually for horses, when they feel fear, it's either fight or flight. So they'll either going to try to run away or to try to get you off their back, right? To try to buck you off or zig and zag and dump you off the side if they can get out from underneath of you. Or so that's usually what will happen and the result. So when the horse feels fear, the horse starts to run. Okay, in this example, so he starts to run, and then the result is that let me backtrack. The horse feels something is new. Okay, something is wrong, so he feels fear. So what he does, he starts to run. Okay, and then what happens as a result of him running is now we have something else new, and that is I'm running if I'm the horse and somebody is on my back. So that was not just, now something else is new. Now I have a rider on me and I'm running, which is worse than just standing there with the rider. Okay, so the result is that he feels that another new thing, that he has a rider at a high speed or the rider falls off, and that solves his problem and he learns how to get away from his fear, and that's by bucking the rider off or jumping out from underneath of him or her. So the rider, let's go into the rider's mind a little bit and explore this. The rider steps onto the horse feels fear, the horse takes off at a run, and the rider thinks in a split second, I'm going to get hurt. So what he feels when he thinks that is fear. So what does he do? He panics and he acts fast and he grabs and he tenses up and he grabs the horse, and the horse feels him clinch down. And so he acts rash and his heart's pumping and he's worried because he thinks he's going to get hurt and he's reacting on fear. So the result is, usually when that happens, the result is usually that the rider gets hurt. Okay. Now let's come back to the horse. The rider is in panic mode. He's clinching down. He's acting like something wrong. So the thought that the horse has is, there is something wrong. Okay. And the rider knows it. Okay. So he either thinks that the rider is confirming that there's something wrong or that the horse did something wrong. And so what happens here? The rider has the horse has more fear. Okay. And so what is the result or the action when he feels more fear? He runs harder and he runs faster. He tries to get the rider off more. Okay, he tries harder. And the result when he's trying that hard to get the rider off is that he has a rider on at a higher rate of speed, which is even more scary for him, or the rider falls off. Okay, so now the horse is running faster and the rider's still on, and the rider's thinking inside of his head, this horse is tough to ride. He's hard to ride. Okay. This horse is tough. He's strong-willed. This horse is going to be hard to ride. And so what does he do? He feels more fear and he has anxiety because he doesn't know if he's going to be able to stay on. Okay, so what does he do? He either doesn't ride, he falls off, or he gets more aggressive. Okay, and the result is him getting more aggressive with his actions. The horse doesn't get he doesn't get good to ride. Okay, the horse doesn't get good to ride, he doesn't ever get broke, or the cycle continues and the horse is hard to ride and the horse gets more aggressive and the rider gets more aggressive and he has more anxiety and worries about it, and this cycle of results that neither the horse is really happy about nor the rider continues to happen. And why? Okay, remember, this all began with one little impulsive thought in the beginning, and the reactions in little impulses of thought. Okay, I'm going to take a look at scenario 2. Okay, scenario 2. Now, this actually happened. This is almost step by step, or play by play, if you will, of what happened about a week ago right here in my round pen in Las Vegas, Nevada, with a 2-year-old that I have. A friend of mine, Rick, was here, helped me start horses, and he stepped on a mare, a 2-year-old mare of mine, that buckskin mare we'll call Purdy is her name, and Rick rode for the first time. So this is scenario 2. Here's what happens. Again, all the prep is done. Okay, the horse is ready as she can be for her first ride. Rick steps up into the stirrup, puts his weight, swings his leg over, sits down in the saddle. Okay, at that point, nothing's happening. He cues her to move forward, and the horse thinks to herself, something's wrong, something's new, something's different, this is wrong. She feels fear, and so she starts to run away. Okay, so her result is same thing. Something new is happening again. Another new thing is happening, and that is, now I'm flying around this round pen as fast, running, and there's somebody on my back. So the rider is either she's gonna experience another new thing, or the rider's gonna fall off. What happens in this scenario is that as she bolts away with Rick on her back, his thought is, I'm prepared. I got this. Okay. So what do you think he feels when he thinks that? In a split second, he feels confident, right? He feels confident. So what do you think he does when he feels confident? What he does is he acts calmly and with intention. Okay. He acts calmly and on purpose. And what is the result of him doing that? The ride slows. Okay. The ride slows down and the horse walks and then stops. So what he did, his acting calmly and his purposeful intention, his purposeful action was, he was riding her in a halter. Okay. And so he lifts on the halter rope, pulls on her nose, pulls on the halter that is on her head, and this redirects her mind, and she slows down to a trot and then a walk, and walks a small circle and then a smaller circle, and then he asks her to whoa, and she stops. She gives to the pressure that where he's pulling, and puts slack in the rope, and he lets the rope drop, and she straightens out and stands still. Okay, so that was the beginning of her first ride. So let's go back into the horse's mind while this was happening. Again, Rick steps on, she bolts and starts to run, and they only make it about a half of a way around this 50-foot round pen. Because here's what happens to the horse. Because Rick responded with confidence and acted calmly with intention, the horse's thinking at this point is, first she reacts with fear, he reacts with intention and with calmness. So she thinks, hey, maybe there isn't something wrong, and the rider is confirming that nothing's wrong. So what does she feel? Because of the way that the rider is responding, the horse responds with curiosity. Horse is like, maybe nothing's wrong. So she feels curious. What do you think she does when she's curious? When she's curious, her ears start moving a little bit like this, and she starts listening for cues from the rider. Okay. And so what is the result is that she shows willingness. Okay. She shows willingness. And I told you then the first part of the ride ended in, she stopped and everything was fine. So, what do you think the rider thinks when the horse is showing willingness? Okay. Then Rick starts to think, hey, this horse wants to get along. This is a good horse. I did a good job of preparation. What do you think he feels when he thinks that? He feels more confident, even more confident. Okay. So when he feels more confident, he clearly communicates his cues. And the result is the horse develops into a great partner, and both of them have a good positive result. The horse feels comfortable and at ease in doing its job, and the horse develops into a great partner, and the rider's happy. Okay. So that's two scenarios of how things can go. And let me just tell you something. I've been through both of them. Okay. I've been on plenty that I can't control and had bad endings. Okay. That I had to go back and fix. And it took a long time in some cases to fix the things that I created in the beginning. So the thing of it is, hey, we can't control. Neither Rick in scenario 2 or the writer, will call it me in the first one, that ended up falling off or creating a bad result and had a bunch of chaos, and it took a lot of time, and it's just a bunch of turmoil and trauma was going on. Okay. The horse is scared to death, the rider's scared to death, and it's just things are not going well. And it feeds on itself and it gets worse. Regardless of that, okay, a lot of times our tendency is to look at the horse and say, well, this horse did good and this horse didn't, and everything's on the horse. When we, as the rider, the horse is picking up on what we're putting down, and we have a tremendous influence that we don't realize on what's going on. Okay. And if we don't know that, we don't think about it, we can't be intentional, and it's harder to get the result that we want. Now, let's just take a quick look and let's compare this. Let's take this story of this first ride, of how the first ride on a horse happens, and compare it to as parents, when you can compare it to a lot of things. Okay. And because any time when your tendency, which is a lot of times a natural tendency, is going to be to react in anger, react in fear. But in this case, I want to talk specifically about for parents when you find out what they did. Okay. When you find out what they did, when you get that phone call, or when they finally tell you, when you finally catch them and you find out what they did. Okay. Just think about that for a minute. How do you feel? Or how did you feel? Or how would you feel? Okay. If something that you didn't approve of, something that you can't believe what they're doing, and your thoughts might be, I can't believe that they would do that. Don't you know any better than that? What's wrong with you? These may be your thoughts. Maybe you're saying your thoughts. I don't know, but these could be your thoughts. And so what are you feeling when you do that? Are you feeling anger? Are you feeling fear? Fear for their life, fear for their future, fear for their lack of experience, fear to their exposure to the world, fear for how their life's going to turn out? Or are you just angry because they don't listen? Are you angry because you thought they knew better? Are you disappointed in yourself? Are you feeling guilty? What's going on? Okay, because the important key here is, okay, your reaction to what happens in these moments will influence their thoughts, and their thoughts, so it'll influence their lives, okay, their actions and their results. So here's the thing, okay, if the first step is just to know that how you respond is going to have a tremendous influence in their lives, just in those moments. Okay. So here's my question for you that I would like you to consider. What do you want them to think? Okay. Do you want them to think that what they did is okay? Do you want them to think it's not okay? Do you want them to think that they're not okay? Do you want them to think they made a mistake, that you're disappointed, that they are a disappointment to you? Do you want them to think that you're upset? Do you want them to think that they're going to suffer for what they did? You want them to think that they can't think for themselves, that you want to control them, that you want what's best for them, that you want them to have what they want, that they can't have what they want? Do you want them to think that that you understand them, or that you don't understand? Or do you want them to think that you love them? Do you want them to think that you are the leader that they can respect and that they can turn to in times of turbulence and trauma? Okay? Because the thing of it is in those moments, okay, in those key little micro moments of decisions, if you become aware, okay, first of all, like I said, you have to understand that how you respond has a tremendous influence on the way that they feel and the way that they act and their result, and so therefore their future, okay? And then the next question is this, and this was the big one. How do you want to be? How do you want to show up in this? Okay. Do you want to show up as the calm, confident leader, or do you want to react in those other ways? Because just like the horse, okay, just like the horse, those moments, they're going to have an impact. They're going to have an impact on if they tell you the truth the next time, on what they do in the future, and on how they. Do you want them to feel like, hey, I know when the chips are down for me as a kid, as the son or daughter of my parents, that the safe place that I can go to, and it's not always a fun place, but the safe place where I can go to get somebody that I believe in, that I trust, that is going to handle this situation with with uh, with confidence, and that is going to do it in a in a is going to treat me with respect, that I believe in, okay, that believes in me and that loves me, okay. That's what we're going for in these moments. Now, let me just tell you something. Remember what I said about the first ride? I've had lots of wrecks on the first ride, too many, okay, and I've responded out of fear. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was in the round pen on a big, powerful gelding, and he's very green. It's only a few rides, and he made a quick move, and I immediately, without thought, clinched up, and he felt that. Okay. And so then he thought, I could feel his eyes getting bigger, and then he thought something was wrong, and so he started to respond, and it took me a while, and I mean, it took me minutes of slowing everything down, being intentional, breathing, being the calm, leader, and letting him know everything was okay. Okay. So the reason I'm telling you that is this. You may have, maybe along the way, maybe you might have blown up at your kids, or had one of these things go down that wasn't exactly perfect. Okay. It could have happened. I don't know. But but it doesn't matter. Okay. None of that matters. It's in the past. What matters is what you're going to do today, from here on out, and what you're going to do tomorrow. So just knowing this is the place to start. And knowing, again, here's the recap, knowing that how you respond, okay, has a tremendous influence on other people's behavior, especially your kids' behavior, and then asking yourself and deciding in advance on purpose, how do I want to show up in this? Okay, that's the first step. Hey, thanks for taking your time to be here with me today. And remember, you cannot fail if you don't ever stop chasing it.